Okay guys, so I'm headed to Whitefish, Montana. I have 2 mountain passes that I need to cross before I can get there. I go up and over the first mountain pass, and as soon as I got to the bottom, I already knew, you know what? This is gonna be a long day, cause it was already about 7 p.m. It's still light outside, won't get dark for a few more hours, but that's not the greatest time, seeing as I had started that morning. I was like, man, this is not looking good. So I'm riding for a second, a guy ends up pulling up behind me, right? And I asked him, hey man, are you going to Whitefish tonight? He was like, I don't know if I'm going to no Whitefish because that means I'm gonna have to go over a whole nother mountain pass tonight. I said, so what you gonna do? You gonna camp? What you gonna do? He said, I don't know what I'm gonna do. So he never told me what he was gonna do. I know I ended up stopping. He ended up going ahead of me. I never saw him again. When I got back on my bike, I did see a campground a few miles, away from where I was. And so I said, okay, maybe he stopped there, But I know I never saw him again for the rest of the night. And I knew I was on my way to this second mountain pass. And while I was on my way, I noticed these beautiful mountains. But one of these mountains had this crazy fog and crazy cloud going around the top of it. And it was like the last mountain that I saw before I got to the mountain that I needed to cross. So that was really strange, but I know, man, I said, that cloud looks ominous. It's something about that cloud that looks like it's from some sort of a fantasy world. But I got to the mountain that I needed to climb. It was getting late. I changed over into my warmer gear. Man, I promise you, at 9:30, it still was a little light outside. It took me about 5 to 10 minutes to put on my gear, to warm up, my gloves, my jacket, my pants, things of that nature. Let me tell you something. It was pitch black dark by the time I got my gear on. That's how quick it gets dark in the mountains. In a millisecond, you'll see some light, and next thing you know, it'll be straight darkness. So, after I got my clothes on, I started biking again. A few hours later, probably around 1 o'clock, I get close to the top of the mountain. I didn't know I was close to the top, but I was close to the top. I noticed, man, just something happened that was so strange. I just got this strange burst of energy over my legs to where it felt like they was almost moving by themselves going up the top of this mountain. I said, man, this is strange. It really hit me as strange, the type of energy that I got. But I got to the top of the mountain. I descended that mountain. I was so happy. And I don't know why I was under the impression that I was finna be in Whitefish. I was thinking like Whitefish was as soon as I descended that mountain. I don't know what I was thinking. Little did I know is that I had about almost 40 miles to go till I got to Whitefish. And so I started pedaling that bike, man. And I remember after I got 5 miles or so, it seemed like I got to this stretch of road where the ground was so damn slippery, man. I couldn't even keep the bike up. I kept slipping with the bike. I'm like, hey, what's happening here? I even said something about it in my Tour Divide race video, called It's a Beautiful Disaster. I even said something about it in that video.
Man, got several more miles to get to Whitefish. After getting out of the mountains, and man, I must be going through some type of sleep deprivation, but this got to be the worst road or one of the worst roads I ever rode on.
But man, it was so slippery, I had to get off the bike and touch the ground. I thought it was some ice down there or snow or something.
I can't tell whether it's ice down here, rock, sand, but it's hard to even stay up.
But it was just super hard road. That's really what it was. And it was almost like it was a paved road. It was crazy what it felt like. It felt like it was the worst paved road in history. That's really what it felt like. And I said, man, I can't stay up on this road to save my life. And I also noticed something else. I noticed that it was like that fog that I had saw from earlier, or those clouds or whatever. It seemed like they had dropped right on top of me. I noticed it was super foggy that night, super foggy. You know, and I had this creepy feeling about it. But I know after I got on the bike and I started riding, don't you know, for like the next 7 miles, I couldn't see anything in front of me. Not because it was foggy. It was because I just couldn't see anything. The only time I could see is when I looked to the left or the right of myself. And when I looked to the left or the right of myself, I could see the grass along the sides of the road. And so I knew not to ride off the road, but I couldn't see in front of me. It was so crazy, and times when I would come to a hill, I didn't know I was at a hill until the bike started going up. And when I looked forward to see the hill that I was climbing, I was literally looking through the street. It's like I was looking through the hill. It was so crazy.
When I look at the street, it's like I'm looking through the street. I can't really see where the hell I'm going.
I know I looked behind me and I saw something behind me that I knew was not there. I'm like, man, that's an illusion right there. I'm hallucinating about whatever this is behind me. But it was more than a hallucination. I'm someone who's had lucid dreaming. Oh, I've done lucid dreaming before. It's where you can wake up while you're actually sleeping. And it's a strange feeling of being awake while you're still asleep. And that's the best way I can explain what I was going through at this particular time. Because when I looked behind me, it felt like I was in one of those lucid dreams. Like, although I was awake, I was in a dream. It was crazy. But I know when I look back ahead, once again, I couldn't see anything else. It's in front of me. I could only see to the side of me. And it was so dangerous because the road was so bad, so many potholes. It was so muddy, so slippery. And I happened to be able to stay up on the bike somehow. I know at one point I was going up some hills, and I stopped pedaling altogether just to see what was going to happen. And let me tell you something. The bike kept going up the hill. It kept going up the hill. 2 or 3 hills. I stopped pedaling just to see what was going to happen, and my bike kept going up. It was amazing. And just like when I got to the top of the mountain, it was sometimes where I was pedaling up some of these hills where my legs, they were just literally pedaling for me. It's like my legs was pedaling, but I wasn't even trying to do it. It was some crazy stuff going on. It got to the point where I had went about 20 miles without being able to see in front of me. And I did something crazy. I pulled out my phone and decided to call my brother. I have no idea why I decided to call him, because there was no reception in the mountains. I shouldn't have been able to get through. But I called him, and guess what? The call actually went through. And I was like, man, I'm calling you because I'm trying to see if I can snap out of it, because I cannot see in front of me. I haven't seen in front of me for the last 20 miles. I say, it's crazy. He said, man, you must be in some sort of a fog. I said, what? I said, it's funny that you say that, because I'm in the fog, but I'm not in the fog that you're talking about. I knew I was in something that seemed to be supernatural. And he said, man, I tell you what, you got about 11 or 12 more miles to go, and you should make it to Whitefish. He say, why don't you call me when you get there? I said, okay, I will. But I sort of snapped out of it a little bit after I talked to my brother. I sort of felt a little more awake. But you know what was funny is I still couldn't see in front of me. When I called him, picked up the phone, dialed his number, I could see the phone, I could see the numbers, I could see everything just fine. But whenever I started pedaling, I couldn't see anything. And It's crazy. The road was so dangerous, especially the closer I got to Whitefish. But I actually made it those next 11 to 12 miles without being able to see, without crashing, going up hills with the same thing happening, where some of them I was getting some crazy strength to pedal, and some of them I literally allowed the bike to go up by itself. It was crazy. And the only time I could see again is when the sun started coming up. I got there about 5:30 of that morning. I know I called my brother once I got there and it was safe and stuff. And he was just telling me, Jay, right around the time you called me, I was hoping to hear from you, because he said your dot had disappeared from the screen. It totally disappeared. He said it was like you went into some sort of a portal or something. I said, what? He said, yeah. He said, the thing is, you got there at around 5:30 in the morning, but when I looked at your information, it was saying that you should have got there at 5:30 that night. He said, it's something like you went ahead of time. I said, what? I said, that is crazy. I said, all I know is it felt like times where sometimes I was going forward and I wasn't pedaling uphill. And sometimes it just felt like I had some type of unreal strength in my legs to where they weren't getting fatigued at all. I said, but the craziest thing is I got all the way to Whitefish without being able to see in front of me. He said, Jay, something happened that night. Something crazy happened. And I know I talked to this lady when I got to Basin, Montana. It's in between Helena and Butte. And she was telling me, because I told her the story. And she said, you know what, Jay? What I believe happened is I believe that God knew that you were too tired to be, riding, and he took over your body, He was pedaling for you, and even, when you couldn't see, he took over the wheel. And I said, you know what? I believe that you're actually right. I believe that's what happened. I believe God actually took over for me that night, He sort of had me in a dream state while he sort of rode the bike into Whitefish, because it's really no other explanation, because I really should have been thrown off that bike or something, because the road was that bad and I really could not see anything in front of me. It was crazy. So it was an amazing, amazing adventure. I'm glad I got to Whitefish healthy and safely. But I do believe it was something to that fog, I believe it was a spiritual presence in that fog, I thought it was going to be something scary when I first saw it over that mountain. But I believe that same fog ended up coming down and getting over me. But instead of being something scary, I believe it was something benevolent, and it was an amazing event that happened that night. I never forget the fog that fell over me before I got to Whitefish. It was a hell of a story, and one of many from the 2024 Twitter vibe. Just remember, your bike can take you a lot of places, and you can do a lot of things. All you have to do is get on your bike and take a ride, and you'll get there. Let me tell you something though, man. When you riding your bike at night, especially at the Twitter vibe, man, that's when a lot of strange things begin to happen.